So let's dive into this Norwegian take on running.
Okay.
We're looking at excerpts today from Lippy det enkel er det beste.
Okay.
That's running.
Yeah.
The simple is the best, for those of us who don't speak Norwegian.
Right.
I got to say, the title alone really grabs my attention. And I'm really curious, have you heard about this whole Leppeglade concept before?
Yeah. It's a really cool philosophy.
Okay.
Leppeglade basically means running joy.
Okay.
It's about stripping away all the pressure and intensity that so often surrounds running.
Yeah.
And just rediscovering that simple pleasure of moving your body,
I love that, especially because this book, it seems to just tackle head on all those excuses we hear for not running.
Yeah.
Or maybe tell ourselves even, right?
Right.
Like, I don't have the time, my knees are going to be destroyed. I just wasn't built for this.
Yeah, the classic running myths.
Yes, exactly.
And they're interesting because a lot of them have at least a grain of truth to them. You know what I mean?
Right.
But this book actually does a great job at picking apart fact from fiction.
Okay.
For example, you hear all the time that running is bad for your joints.
Right.
And while it's true that any high-impact exercise can put stress on your joints, studies show that running can actually make your joints stronger.
Wow.
Especially your knees, as long as it's done correctly, right?
So it's all about that gradual buildup.
Exactly. Our bodies are actually amazingly adaptable.
Okay.
But we need to give them the right signals and cues to do so. That's why this book stresses a gradual progression, starting with a good mix of walking and then short little bursts of running.
Right.
And this does a couple things. It helps prevent injury, which is so important for beginners.
Right.
But it also lets you build a really solid foundation.
Okay.
Not just physically, but mentally, too.
And that really connects with the whole idea of Leppeglade, doesn't it?
Exactly.
It's not about pushing yourself to your absolute limit right away.
Right.
It's about enjoying the journey as you go.
Yeah.
And making running something you can sustain long term.
It really does. And actually, it reminds me a lot of the mindful running movement.
Really?
Yeah, which stresses being present in your body as you're running.
Okay.
Paying attention to your breath. And finding enjoyment in just the rhythm of each stride.
So I'd love to hear more about that connection to mindful running.
Yeah.
But before we go there,
Sure.
I have to ask about Nina.
Yeah.
Because her story is all throughout this book.
It is.
And it's so relatable.
Yeah.
She goes from basically calling herself a sofa lover
Right.
to running marathons.
It's pretty inspiring, right?
God, it is.
It really shows you how powerful changing your mindset can be.
Okay.
Because she's very open about the challenges, both physical and mental,
Right.
that she had to overcome to get there.
Yeah.
But what I think is really interesting is how much she emphasizes overcoming those initial mental hurdles.
Yeah.
That voice we all have in our heads that says, I can't do this.
Oh, yeah.
That can be so powerful.
Totally.
But her story shows that you can actually challenge it and change it.
And they actually give some really good advice for doing that in the book, right?
They do.
And they keep it really simple and relatable. It's not like they're suggesting this intense meditation regimen or anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they talk about things like visualization, setting realistic goals, and celebrating small wins.
Okay.
And all of that can really help build your confidence,
Go for it.
and make the whole process seem less daunting.
Yeah.
They actually suggest picturing yourself having already completed a run
Okay.
and feeling really strong and energized.
Okay.
And this is actually a technique used by a lot of athletes, at all different levels.
Interesting.
Because it helps get you in the right headspace
Yeah.
and sort of create this mental blueprint for your run.
Makes sense.
So both your mind and body are ready to go.
So I am all about those small wins.
Yeah.
That's how I stay motivated for sure.
Yeah.
And this book actually does a really great job, I think, of breaking down the whole training process in a way that seems achievable.
Right.
Even if you're someone who gets intimidated by those really complicated running plans.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Right.
Those plans can be so overwhelming.
Totally.
One of the things I thought was most effective was how they structure their walk-run program.
Okay.
It's about easing you into it.
Right.
Not just throwing you straight into the deep end.
Yeah.
Which is really crucial to avoid injury.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially as a beginner.
Right.
And so they actually lay out these week-by-week plans that start with a base of walking. And then they slowly weave in these short intervals of running.
Yeah.
And then as you progress each week,
Right.
they gradually increase the amount of time you're running.
Right.
and the intensity.
I like it. And they don't skimp on the practical stuff either.
No, they don't.
Like, I was super interested in how much they emphasize getting the right shoes and socks.
Yeah, it seems so simple, right?
It does, but
But it makes a huge difference.
it really does. They really drive home the point that having the right gear is essential.
It is. They actually dedicate like a whole section to finding good running shoes. And for good reason.
Yeah.
Because the wrong shoes can lead to like blisters and foot pain.
Oh, for sure.
And even more serious injuries.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So finding a pair that fits you well
Right.
and gives you enough support.
Cushioning. Yeah.
Yeah, it can make running a lot more enjoyable
Totally.
and prevent a lot of potential problems down the road.
Exactly. And they even recommend going to a store that specializes in running shoes
Oh, yeah?
to get fitted by a professional.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's all about setting yourself up for success,
Oh,
right?
see, exactly.
And, for a book, that's all about simplicity.
Right.
They have this really funny way of describing their warm-up.
Oh, yeah.
It's called the Queen's Walk.
Okay. The Queen's Walk. I love that they put stuff like that in there.
Right.
It's fun.
It's so much more engaging than just like dry information,
Yeah. I agree. So what is the Queen's Walk?
Okay, so basically,
Yeah.
they were watching Queen Sonja of Norway,
Okay.
and she walks with this really straight posture, like she's almost gliding.
Picture it.
So they tell readers to try and copy her style,
Okay.
and they really highlight how important good posture is,
Right.
even when you're just warming up
I like that.
and having a strong core.
I love how they tie in those observations
Me too.
to their advice.
It's great.
It makes the whole experience more relatable.
Yeah.
Less like a textbook.
Yes.
It's not just about like following instructions. It's
Yeah.
about finding those moments of joy.
Yeah.
Even in the lead up to your run.
And speaking of joy,
Yeah.
they actually quote Sebastian Coe.
Okay, the Olympic runner.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's that
So he talks about how he feels this sense of anticipation before he runs.
interesting.
Like this feeling of knowing something good is about to happen. And they use that to emphasize that running isn't just a physical thing.
Right.
It's mental and emotional, too.
It really is all about having that positive attitude.
Totally.
Finding those moments of joy, even when it's hard.
Right.
And just realizing that every run can be rewarding in its own way.
Absolutely. And they talk a lot about the mental training aspect, too,
They do.
which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Like they go beyond just visualization techniques
Okay.
and give some real strategies for dealing with those negative thoughts
Yeah.
that tend to pop up
Oh,
when you're running.
Especially in those tough runs.
Exactly. And one of the things that really struck me as we were going through the book is how Nina's trip to Kenya kind of ties into all of this.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Because she travels to Kenya,
Right.
which is like this place known for its amazing runners,
Right.
to see how they approach running.
Yeah. It's interesting because in Aitan, that little town in Kenya,
Right.
where all these world-class runners come from,
Exactly.
running, isn't this like separate activity?
Yeah.
It's just part of life.
Right. Like the kids run to school.
Exactly.
People run errands.
Yeah. It's just what they do.
It's not this like big thing.
Yeah, it's refreshing, isn't it?
It is. Because it makes you think about like all the gear and technology we have here.
Right.
We have all this stuff.
Yeah, all the gadgets.
And we still make excuses not to run.
Exactly. And meanwhile, you have people in Aitan
Right.
setting world records
I know.
in like the simplest shoes.
Right. It really puts it all in perspective.
It shows you that you don't need all the bells and whistles
Exactly.
to experience how amazing running can be.
And their training is so interesting too.
It is very minimalist.
Like it just shows you the power of consistency and dedication.
Absolutely. And community too,
Right.
because they train together a lot.
They do. They push each other.
Yeah, they support each other.
Celebrate each other's wins.
It's a great reminder that running can be social, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Like a way to connect with people
Exactly.
and find inspiration, which is something Nina got to experience firsthand when she ran that half marathon in Kenya.
Oh, yeah. At altitude.
I know. Talk about chow.
That's next level right there.
Seriously. So much harder to breathe.
Oh, yeah. Your body has to work so much harder.
But she said it was exhilarating too.
Of course.
Like she was pushing her limits.
Yeah, both physically and mentally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she was surrounded by all these runners.
Right. Who just embodied lip-gled.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it made me think about how sometimes we need to step outside of our comfort zones.
Oh, yeah.
Really grow. you know?
Really.
And that's true for so many things in life.
It is. It's not always comfortable to push your boundaries.
It's not. But it can be so rewarding.
It can. And I think that's what's so cool about running.
Yeah.
It can teach you so much more than just like physical fitness.
Totally.
Yeah.
Wait, so I have one more question for you.
Okay, shoot.
For a book that's all about keeping it simple,
Yeah,
they don't really mention technology that much.
that's true. It's interesting, right?
It is, because we have so much tech now
We do.
for tracking our runs and stuff.
Yeah, like all these apps and wearables.
Do you think that enhances the whole lip-gled idea?
That's a good question.
Or does it distract from it?
I think it depends.
Mm.
For some people, all that data and stuff,
Yeah.
it motivates them.
Right.
Help them set goals,
Yeah.
see their progress.
Right? It's like a fun way to stay engaged.
Exactly. But for other people,
Yeah.
it might just add more pressure,
True. Yeah.
Take away from just being present on the run.
So I guess, like with most things,
It's about finding what works for you.
exactly. There's no right or wrong answer.
And at the end of the day, running is about connecting with your body,
Yes.
finding your own pace, and enjoying the journey.
I love that. That's a perfect note to end on.
I think so.
So as you're lacing up your shoes for your next run,
Yeah.
remember to keep it simple, find your pace, and most importantly,
Find your loop glide.
exactly. Thanks for diving into this with me.
Oh, of course this was fun.
Always a good time.